Sports are more than just a competition and a trophy. Sports are a portal for everyday people to pursue their wildest dreams on some of the world's largest stages. My name is Riley Sager, and I'll be taking you along with me as I hear from SBC and VSL alumni who pursued a career in the business of sports. In this series, I will sit down with guests to discuss strategies for entering the sports world and what you can do to differentiate yourself in the industry. From playing to coaching to broadcasting, the common denominator for any job in sports is the ability to push oneself to become a master at their craft while connecting with others who share that same passion to be great. Let's get into it. Today, we're excited to feature Utah Jazz and Utah Hockey Club video production intern Zion Atwater, a dynamic media professional and VSL alum making waves in the sports media industry. A graduate of the University of Colorado Boulder, Zion holds a BA in media production and a BS in strategic communication. Zion's creative expertise was further honed this past summer while working with HallPass Media and Second Round Foundation on Jalen Brunson's charity golf tournament, where she collaborated with fellow VSL alumni to capture compelling content. Now with the Utah Jazz, she continues to leverage her media production and strategic communication skills to create engaging content for the team. Zion, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you on the podcast.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're currently working with the Utah Jazz, but you recently graduated from University of Colorado Boulder. You were double major in media production and strategic communication. So can you talk about how those two complemented each other and what you learned from each of them?
Yeah. So I'll say I decided to do advertising strategy my junior year of college, just to add that as another major. I had a lot of room to add more credits in order to graduate. So I decided to double major. The reason I did, probably around junior year, I was really ramping up in content creation, especially working with like the athletics teams. And I realized that there was a value in understanding the why behind the stuff that I was making. Everything that goes out for a sports team on social media plays a very important cog in the whole wheel of advertising and pushing ticket sales, getting recruits, getting donors and sponsors. So making sure I understood the strategy behind it and why companies need digital media content in general was the reason why I decided to add on advertising strategy as an area of study.
Did you have any experience going into college? Is there a reason why you chose Colorado Boulder? What was your mindset going into it?
Yeah. So I'm from Florida originally. Was originally just going to go to like UF or FSU or something. But I had like a very strong passion for the arts in high school in general. I did a lot of like music production, and eventually that stemmed into making music videos and making film scores and stuff and scores for movies. So that really fueled my passion for storytelling, because I figured if you can storytell through music, you can storytell very well through video, and combining the two could be something really cool. So that being said, I kind of switched directions and was wanting to focus on something that, or studies like a major that encapsulated video, photo, sound design, music, and everything. And at the time that I was applying to colleges back in 2020, there were only two programs that really had a prominent media production program, and that was Colorado and FSU. So I wanted to get out of Florida, ended up in Colorado, and started studying media production. And then around sophomore year, I found the internship with CU Athletics, applied for that. By then I had a very, very small portfolio, not a lot of stuff to show, but I think the good thing about doing internships as a college student is you don't really have to come in with a lot of experience, because you're really meant to just learn and siphon in a lot of information and be able to like build a foundation that you might not already have. So yeah, I went into the internship with the mindset of like everything that I put into it is exactly what I'm going to get out of it. So I just went in head first, wanted to work as hard as I could, learn as much as I could. And I had really, really amazing mentors and people that I was working with every single day in order to build my skill set to where it is now.
What was the hardest part of that role when you first got into the internship? Is there anything that was like culture shocked you? Like, oh, wow, like I never knew all this went into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything was a culture shock. Like my only experience with sports, like working in sports, was high school sports. And for reference, my basketball team was like 11 girls on it, and we were not very good at all. So, that kind of stuff is so much different from college. And then also going to a D1 school, there's a lot of money that goes into these programs, a lot of dedication and time and effort. And I think not only are the sports itself different, it's like you're competing at a different level and faster paced sports. Basketball is a lot more faster paced in college than it is in high school. But also the hierarchy and the structure of an organization and where you fit into that as a student creative or an intern, being able to kind of support the system that they already have going on, and just being very adaptable and willing to just take criticism in the best way possible, and take everything that you're learning and apply it to your skill set and technical skills and everything like that. So I think one of the biggest like culture shocks was just working with cinema grade cameras. My first day on the job, I like went to a tennis match because I said I like really wanted to work with tennis team. That was just my thing. I just really liked tennis, and I played tennis for a really long time. So went into a tennis match, was given this like 20-pound camera. I had no idea what was going on. I just knew where the record button was and how to work the lens, and that was it. And from there, just understanding like different specs of a camera, understanding just all like the technical things that come with working with cinema grade, industry grade cameras was like the biggest culture shock for me. And then also switching to Adobe Creative Suite. So all the videos I had done before then was just Final Cut Pro or iMovie. So learning, not just one, but several different softwares and how they work and how they're integrated within each other. That was like a big shock to me as well, but I think I picked up on it pretty well. I'd say. Yeah.
Can you talk about the importance of having that holistic view on everything? Like, even if you are behind the scenes, if you're on camera, just knowing what's going on, the different softwares, like you never know what you might need in your day-to-day job.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I mean, most people, when you're applying to jobs, they're going to ask, like, you need to be proficient in Adobe Creative Suite, especially for video production jobs. Everyone's expecting you to be proficient in Premiere Pro and After Effects. So that's just something that comes with the territory. I think Premiere Pro specifically is kind of industry standard right now. There's a few more softwares that people are really getting into, but that stuff is super important, and it's good to be well versed in it. And, I think a lot of people are like, I don't really know how to learn. I don't know how to get into it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, YouTube University all the way. Like, as much as I value my degree and what I learned in media production as a major, CU taught it very theoretically. So it was a lot of kind of that holistic view of understanding theories and how things started, what experimental film is, like understanding composition, but it wasn't very hands-on. So being in that internship and getting that hands-on experience was super vital for me. I wouldn't be where I am today without that. Just because that's just stuff that you need to know and you need to understand in order to do it. Being a videographer isn't just picking up a camera and pressing a button. It's a lot more that goes into it. And the best way, in my opinion, is just do your own research and figure out the workflow and the learning system that works best for you. So I just watched a ton of YouTube videos, Instagram Reels, figuring out what people were making and how that aligned with what I wanted to make. And then for storytelling, just watching like Netflix Untold series, like those sports documentaries, ESPN 60 minutes, like all that kind of stuff allowed me to get into the mindset of like, this is how you storytell in sports. And here's like the theoretical way to do it, and here's the technical way to do it. And I think that really helped.
So how did your internship with the athletics allow you to express your creative side?
Yeah, I mean, as I built more trust within the program and with my mentors and stuff, I got a lot more freedom to be more creatively expressive. I think social media is a great outlet and platform for you to, show different ways to tell stories and different ways to do video, and especially with sports as well. I think sports can be very generic it's just like in general, it can be very generic and you're seeing a lot of the same things. So something that my boss told me was like, if I've seen it before, I'm probably not going to want you to do it. So that was like the kind of standard of trying to access my creativity. And I think it's like the way I did that was, still taking reference and inspiration from things that I was seeing, but figuring out how to do it in a way that was specific to CU's brand, and specific to athletes as well. So I knew something I really wanted to get creative with was just telling the athlete's story and perspective and point of view apart from just being on the court and playing basketball or being on the field and playing football. So something that, like, for example, a project I really want to do is like, what's in my locker? Like, what is in a football player's locker? What are those little objects and niche little things that no one else really knows except for this football player and, the space and privacy of their locker? And I think something like that is mundane on surface, but when you get to a deeper level and you release that out there, fans and people in the community can get to see like, oh, like this guy, he's a 260-pound O-line, 6-foot guy who is obsessed with this tiny little Rubik's Cube. Like, that's not something that you would think is like interesting, but it really is. And I think those are ways that I found were like the most interesting ways to be creative, is just finding the really key points in the mundane little things of life. Because when you're a college D1 athlete that practices every day for multiple hours a day while being a student, that's already not mundane at all. So any normalcy that you can get in your life is interesting in its own. And so I think that's the way I was able to be creative. And then I think music as well, when you're working with college teams, you have a little bit more creative freedom to include music as a way to kind of guide a story. Stuff with like copyright and everything. Once you get to pros, you like can't really use copyrighted songs, but with college you can. So using that and then following like different traditions with the school and why students are so loyal to the school, I think all of those ways really enacted my creativity, and I was just able to express those different stories through what I was doing with CU.
So you talked about kind of sharing the story aspects of these athletes' lives that, you don't see on social media, that the fans don't necessarily know about. Is that how you built trust with them, just having that genuine curiosity?
Yeah, I think you have to have that trust before you even pitch them that project, So really the trust is like being at practice every day, waking up at 5 a.m. to go to mat drills and film, mat drills with, if you don't know what football mat drills are, it's like the hardest thing that a football college player will do, because it's like military style training and, they're throwing up and everything. But once you start getting, like if I'm doing that every single morning with the same group of guys and they start seeing my face around and they get in the camera all sweaty and they're like, oh, this sucks. Like, we start to kind of build a relationship in that way. So I think showing face and being a familiar face, because I think a lot of people forget how a camera can be almost like weaponizing, in the sense where it makes people very vulnerable when you're on camera and you're being recorded. So the most you want to be with people and that are like the most comfortable around you. So building relationships, texting players and being like, hey, I thought of this cool video idea. Like, what do you think about this? How would you like to, put your own input into this? Like, what works best for you? And just meeting the players where they're at, because at the end of the day, like, they're humans, they're students. Some of these kids are 17, 18 years old and coming straight out of like high school. So being able to connect with them, I think that's what allowed me to get so close and build relationships with these players too, is also just my age, just being younger. We as student interns had a lot more access to these players because some of them were just in my class. So doing like homework assignments with them and being like, hey, why don't we shoot a video?
Yeah.
I think that is just how you just get more personal, especially in college. In pro sports, it's a little bit different. It's a lot of jumping through hoops and rings and PR and everything, but it's still the same concept, just showing face, being there as much as you can, and really putting in the time to get to know these people, and don't just pick up a camera and shove it in someone's face because they're cool. Like, talk to them, get to know them, and, you know, be friends with them in the best way that you can.
Yeah, especially with the higher profile individuals, these athletes are on 24/7. You know, there's either a camera on them or on social media, they're being criticized, NIL, all of that. So I'm sure the relatability from you and just being authentic and wanting to know their story goes so far.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we had this player, Jimmy Horn, whose father was in jail currently throughout his season. And we knew we wanted to do a piece on him because his father was the reason why he got into football. But I couldn't just go up to him and be like, hey, we want to do a super emotional 10-minute piece on your dad in jail, and I don't even know the guy. So a lot of that pre-production was just getting to know him and having pre-set interviews where there's no camera, there's no mic. We're just talking, and we're talking about, like, what do you want this video to be? Like, what do you want to say about your dad and how important he is to your football career right now? Like, what your passions are. So then when you have that, you can go into the actual interview where the camera's on, the mic's on, and know what you want to talk about and what he wants to talk about, and have that kind of frame your questioning, which is super important. I think a lot of people overlook it a lot with college athletes. It's just like, you know, you got to talk to them about what they're interested in saying, because you never would want to put out a video that someone doesn't want out there.
Yeah. Is there another one of those examples, either a project you worked on that was super fulfilling, or you didn't expect it to come out the way it did, but you were proud?
Yeah, I think one that always comes to mind, we did this series called Folsom 100. My last season with CU football was the 100th year on Folsom Field. So it was very historical. It's exactly the kind of stuff that I like to do. So the project I worked on was a recap of our 2001 CU versus Nebraska game. If you know anything about CU and Nebraska, they're all-time rivals, very historical rivals and stuff. So I love that because it had nothing to do with student athletes. It was, you know, athletes that are in their 30s, 40s, you know, off with their own families and doing their own thing, and allowing them to, like, reflect on those special moments, but then also going back to that 2001 broadcast and watching the whole 4 hours, understanding the game, understanding those key moments of what happened, and figuring out the best way to build that storyline using all archival footage. You know, I'm not able to go back in time and shoot the game myself, so I really have to work with what I'm, you know, doing. But I think the most rewarding part about that, one, for starters, I didn't think it was going to come out good because it was all archival footage. But two, I think I turned it around super quick. It was like a 2-day project and a 5-minute video, which is hard to do. You know, it's like 1 day of just sifting through interviews and shooting interviews and sifting through 4 hours of game broadcasts and just organizing. And then the next day was just building and editing the whole thing to be released for that game. And so I think the most rewarding part was being able to talk to these alumni, and, you know, like the quarterback at the time, and seeing their reactions to the video. And one of the guys that we interviewed, Matt McChesney, he started crying when he saw me. He was just like, what you were able to accomplish in telling that story. And that's, like, you know, one of the peak moments of my life. And you put it and condensed it into this 5-minute video. And it's like, that's exactly how I felt, like, on that field when we won. And you put that in a video, and that's, like, you know, something that he didn't get the chance to experience at the time, you know? So I think that's definitely the most rewarding aspect for me. It's not views or impressions or likes or comments and stuff. It's, you know, the people and the stories that I'm telling. I'm telling their stories, and I only want to do it justice for them. And so when they come to me and they're emotional and, you know, really hyped up or excited about what I did for them, that's what fuels my passion to tell these stories in the first place.
When he told you that, how did you respond?
Well, I was nervous because I didn't know. I didn't know really how to respond. I don't, like, something about me. I think being a videographer is probably the reason why I'm like this, but I don't take compliments well, because I'm always like, I could do a better job. Like, I could always make a better video. So when someone comes up to me and they're crying, it's like a grown man who's like, emotional. I get a little like, thanks, but inside I'm like, really happy and fulfilled that he feels that way and stuff like that. But yeah, I think we just had a quick conversation. He asked me like how I did it and what the process was behind it. And I just told him like I watched the game like all the way through from start to finish. And that's how I figured out how to tell that story. And he thanked me and he was like, not a lot of people would take the time to do it. And I know that, part of it is like you have to do it. But, I didn't feel like I really had to do it or being forced to do it. I wanted to do it. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone who wants to go into this industry. It's a hard job. It doesn't pay well all the time and you're putting in grueling hours. So if there's not some intrinsic value in that, where it's like, I want to do this for myself because I'm passionate about it, you're going to hate it. Like, as much as you like it right now, like 5 years down the line, you're going to burn out and you're going to hate it. Yeah. And I think that's like what sets me and other people in this industry apart from people that get it, go into it, try it, and figure out that it's not for them. It's just like we really have a passion for it.
Yeah. That's an interesting point you bring up because I'd identify as a perfectionist myself. So I feel like there's always something, even with podcast episodes, like I hate listening back. So I'm like, I already know what I need to work on. I'm going to just criticize myself too much. So how do you find that line between knowing what to improve on versus overdoing it and burning yourself out because you've just, putting yourself down too much?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, like to your point, I think imposter syndrome is like a very, very real thing and needs to be talked about and recognized a lot more. Because I think it's very easy to be in these positions where you're like, oh, I'm at an NBA team. Like, what am I doing here? I don't deserve to be here. I don't know, like, if I have the skill set to be here or anything like that. And then, continuing to work on your craft and excel and understand that, like, you're not the worst person to do it, but you're also not the best person to do it. And finding a good middle ground between being humble, but also being confident enough to pursue and take risks and continue to learn more, I think is the biggest thing. And, not falling victim to that imposter syndrome and feeling like you don't belong where you are, because ultimately if you're there and they want you there, then you belong there. And you have to have the criteria and the skill set in order to be in these spaces, especially in sports, because people can see right through not adequate work or people that just aren't hard workers or don't have a good work ethic. People can see right through it. So I think that's a big thing. And then I think just continuing to learn and be open to learning. My mentor always said it was like, just be coachable, be open to receiving criticism and don't get too hard on yourself. And don't always compare yourself. I think social media is a lot of reason why videographers around my age decide to stop or move to a different direction, or, they're like, oh, I think I want to be, more exec level and stuff like that. It's because, you look on social media and you're seeing what all these cool people are doing and everything. You're like, oh, I can never make something like that. It's like, you can, you're just not there yet. So give yourself time and be patient and just continue to work on what you need to work on, and ask, if you don't know, ask people. I think I don't ever let something go out until I have at least like 2 people review it, because I get caught up in my own head and I'm looking at the screen in the same video for sometimes weeks. Yeah. And I'm just like, I hate this video now. It sucks and I don't want to put it out. But then as soon as I saw someone else who hasn't seen it, they're like, Zion, this might be the best thing that you've ever made. And so I'm like, oh, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better, So just get different eyes on your stuff and collaborate with people. Everyone has different ways of approaching things. And I think the biggest reason why I'm here today is because the people that, and especially the students at CU, that I collaborated with on a daily basis. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to go shoot and edit all by myself. Like, we're going to practice with a team of 4 or 5, combining all of our footage together and talking about what we want this video to be before or after practice. Like, that's very important. So being with the team and collaborating and getting feedback and criticism and taking it everything, to heart and applying it in the best way that you can.
Yeah, it's a tough balance for sure, but your skill set earned you a position as a Vegas Summer League intern where you were working with other individuals on content creation and, people who were sharing your vision, but then also giving you feedback, allowing you to do your own thing. So can you explain that role, what your position was as an intern and how you collaborated with other interns?
Yeah. So my position for Summer League, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Summer League, kind of similar, just a video production intern, primarily for social. We also did some like game presentation stuff. So you'd see on the concourse or on the Jumbotron. A lot of our stuff was like, going out and shooting the win party, and having that ready to go for the Jumbotron the next morning, stuff like that. And I think what I really liked about it, was every morning we'd kind of regroup and say like, okay, which video or which piece of content like performed the best and why. Some people might have different viewpoints on it, but everything that we shot of Bronny did really well. Like everything Bronny was great. So
yeah,
I think
shocker.
Shocker, right? But that was like really cool to kind of experience because, like I said before, I don't really care about numbers as much. But at the same time, when you're working with something like Summer League, numbers really do matter, especially once you get towards the middle of the Summer League, where not a lot of people are coming, and people that aren't showing up to these games really do rely on the social media content that we're putting out in order to stay updated on how their favorite players are doing or how their favorite teams are doing. So yeah, I think that was great. And then working collaboratively, I worked a lot with Kaylee, who was also another video production intern, and we just collaborated a lot on video ideas and like, being like, oh, I'm going to go shoot this game and capture this player, and then I'm going to go shoot this game and capture this player, and we're going to make a video about them together, because they came from like the same college or something like that. So I think that was cool to work with in a team of videographers that were very highly skilled, but also within the same age as me. So we could kind of bounce off ideas and, I'd just peek over at Kaylee's video that she's working on and give my thoughts, and she'd peek over at mine and give her thoughts. And that's what I really, really enjoyed about Summer League in general. I think another huge collaborative effort was like, and you probably remember, is like the donuts thing. I forgot. Is it Pink Box? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pink something. I think it's Pink Box.
So we were kind of tasked with by Sergio, Jasmine, and I to get Pink Box donuts in social videos without being obvious that there's Pink Box videos. So that was cool because I got to collaborate with people outside of that video trailer and talk to interns who had some kind of interest in social and wanted to figure out a way to get into it. And so running around with Jasmine, finding these players, trying to get donuts in their hands. We had like capture this awesome moment where Jared McCain's fingernails that he painted matched the donut that we gave him.
Oh my gosh.
And that was like, a 10-second clip, but that also took like hours of preparation because we're trying to figure out when is Jared McCain going to be here? What's the best way we can get it? What kind of equipment do we need in order to capture this thing? So little moments like that, not a lot of people understand like the pre-production that goes into it, but it was cool to be able to collaborate with other interns that weren't necessarily on the social team, but had an interest in it and wanted to learn about it. Also did the mic'd up stuff with other interns as well, which was like super fun, just going around and talking to fans about, oh, can you guess like the colors of this NBA logo? Like which team is this? Like little stuff like that is, it's fun to do because everything else is like, shooting game highlights, and that can only be, doing that for X amount of days, like over 2 weeks can get a little bit boring.
Yeah.
So, I loved working collaboratively with the other interns on stuff like that.
What was the greatest thing you learned from them?
I think just, I think communication and patience. I think just being able to clearly communicate my thoughts, I think they're coming to me as someone who had a lot of experience with video and social media and talking to athletes, and then, being able to communicate my experience and expertise to them that may not have that much experience with it, is just like a big thing that you have to be able to do. You're not always going to be working with people that have done the same exact thing that you've done for the past 3 years, So I think sometimes I kind of have to remind myself, like, hey, not everyone can, has their thoughts going, as fast as you are. And I think sometimes my brain moves faster than my mouth does. So I have to, slow down, take a step, really explain things like, this is what we really need. This is why we need it. And, everyone that I worked with on those projects were like super understanding of like, one, the importance of what we were capturing, and two, how we were going to do it. And, what really helped is like, I think I was automatically pushed into a leadership role with those projects, and allowing me to lead was like very, helpful, because I think we all were able to accomplish something really cool. And, they're all open-minded to, my thoughts, and understood my experience coming into it. So yeah, I think leadership and communication are the two biggest things that I learned and took away from working collaboratively with them. And I think that's the two biggest things that anyone should take working collaboratively with anyone, is like how to lead, but also know when to step back and allow someone to take the reins and get something done, and being able to have trust in them because you communicated well enough what you wanted them to do.
No, you did for sure, because when I found out it was your first year working for VSL, I was like, there's no way. So, like, I thought you'd been with them for 10 years, but it was all your prior experience in college and that kind of thing. You said you had to lean into that mentorship role. What was that adjustment like for you? And then how did you go about teaching and sharing your prior experience to kind of help, get everybody on the same playing field when you're working on a project together?
Yeah, I think mentoring for me all started at CU. So within our internship, we had kind of a tiered system. And the interns that were there the longest, that were showing the most level of like technical understanding, and, had a very big passion for it. They were regarded as like gold tier interns. So we had gold, silver, and white. And so gold tier interns were mentors, and I think the last 2 years I had at CU, I was a mentor. In each semester, I'd get a new set of like students that just came in. So I'd usually have anywhere between 4 to 6 students that I was mentoring. And I think that really was like the catalyst of me teaching, and also helping me perfect my own craft by teaching, because I don't want someone to come up to me and be like, how do I do this? And I'm like, I don't know. So
good question.
Yeah. So I want to be able to like answer those questions. And I think that's where it all really started, because a lot of that mentorship was like, how do I edit a hype video? How do I edit a cinematic recap? How do I why are recruit shoots important, and how do we make them cool? Like, these are things that I'm teaching students as much as I am teaching like how to hold a camera, how to shoot on a camera, what codec means, what frames per frame rate means, like all these little things that we did. And I think starting that program structure with my boss, was really helpful, because, I suggested, I was like, you guys as full-time staff are doing a lot, and you don't have enough time to teach these students, but this is an internship where students should be taught. So why don't we give, the ones that have been here the longest, the vets, a chance to really, hone in on our craft by teaching more. And that's how all of that started. So I really, really enjoyed being a mentor. And I think that's why coming into Summer League, I was like already so kind of prepared to take on a mentorship role with some of these projects, was because I just have done it before. And I really love it. And I think that is also a reason why I'm so passionate in what I do, is because I get to teach people how to do it and kind of see their passion spark. So like a moment I remember from Summer League was like, one of the interns was like, I really like taking photos. I've never took videos before, and what you do looks super cool. I just want to try it out. And I'm like, come and shoot a game with me. Like, just like come sit next to me for a couple hours, or no, not even an hour, like a couple hours, like 30 minutes, and take my camera and I'll just walk you through my process and what I do, and then you do it. And that was really fun because she like learned a lot in a short amount of time, and she had like zero video or photo experience like that before. So I think that's such a great thing about Summer League is you're able to kind of go into different departments and learn more based off of like what you're most interested in. So the fact that she, even had, I guess, confidence to come into the video trailer, that's like, it, for people that aren't familiar with Summer League, the video trailer is like separated from everyone else. So, and we're kind of all in our own little box and world and stuff.
Yeah.
So coming in there is like a little bit daunting, I feel like, if you haven't been in there before. But that's why building relationships is like so important with when you're doing something like Summer League. So, talking to people and being like, what are you interested in? I want to do social. Well, let's do a social project together and just learn what it is that I do and how to hold a camera and shoot a basketball game. These are things that don't take a lot of time to do. And for me, I'm like, I've shot 7 basketball games in one day. I think I can give 30 minutes of my time to someone else, But yeah, that was like super memorable for me. And that was something I really enjoyed doing at Summer League.
No, you're exactly right. It's go for 11 days, but you're exposed to so many new elements. There's so many opportunities that, maybe you have a little bit of experience, but you've never tried this one thing. And it's just all day for 11 days, you can try so many things.
Yeah.
Just a few weeks after Summer League, you worked with HallPass Media and Jalen Brunson's charity golf tournament for Second Round Foundation. What was that like going from Summer League to then working the golf tournament, and what was your role with them? Yeah,
so I mean, obviously a big difference is, 1 day of shooting versus 11 days of shooting.
Yeah.
But I think what I love being around like people that love sports and people that play sports. And I think working with HallPass has been one of the greatest outlets to be able to do that. So being at Jalen Brunson's charity golf tournament, one of the biggest things and kind of emotional things is like, it kind of set me apart of like being this student intern kind of vibe and, having enough trust, put in me to go and shoot something that meant a lot to a lot of people and create something that meant a lot to a lot of people. So I think also coming and approaching sports from a philanthropic perspective is a lot different too, because that's an entirely different story you're telling. Yeah. And Second Round Foundation, in its entirety, is an emotional story in itself. It's based off of Jalen getting drafted in the second round and proving to not only himself and his family but the NBA that he's a first round draft pick and an important vital role to the Knicks. So coming into that kind of opportunity with that perspective really changed my mindset on like what kind of stuff I'm supposed to be capturing. Like, I'm not just shooting people playing golf. Like, I'm shooting a community of people coming together to celebrate something and to, give back to, the things that in places that made them who they were today. I think it was also really interesting because it was only one team. So, Summer League, you're working with so many different teams and so many different players. Whereas like with, working Second Round Foundation, it's just Jalen and, Josh Hart and his family. And then you have the Knicks community. So it's a different approach to storytelling entirely. And that's kind of, I call it pre-production, but it's just having the certain mental and mindset and like thought process when you're approaching a project. Is like, you're not going to shoot people hit golf balls. You're shooting a community event that people care a lot about. And I think one of the most rewarding experiences from that was being able to show Jalen's mom, Sandra, the, recap video I edited of everything that Jalen's accomplished in the last year, not only just on the court, but also with Second Round Foundation. And, when she watched that video, she cried. And, like I said, that like with the Nebraska video, it was kind of that same thing where it's just like, that really resonates with me. And that, once again, like fueled my passion of like, this is why I do what I want to do, is not to make people cry, but
I was going to say, is that your goal?
No.
You've touched them enough. I think, it could be like you've made them such an emotional project, it captures everything that you wanted to, that, just brings them to tears.
Yeah, I think the tears are just like the physical evidence. Like it's the physical evidence that makes me feel like, oh, I actually did something cool. But obviously I don't want to make everyone cry with what I make, but I do think that, to go on the crying thing, I do think that that's like one of the truest ways to express emotion, and truest forms of expressing emotion is just like let it out and cry and tear up. And Jalen's mom not only cried when she reviewed the video, but she cried at the dinner portion of the fundraising event where the video was played. And I'm like shooting her watching the video that I made. And it's kind of like, it's like a really surreal feeling for me, because I'm like, she really appreciates what I did. And I accomplished what the goal was, which is to capture how pivotal and how moving everything that Jalen was doing that year and everything that Second Round Foundation was doing, was for not only them and their family, but the Knicks community as well. So I think that was like just an amazing experience in general. And I absolutely loved working that Second Round Foundation tournament.
Yeah, now you have some NBA experience under your belt. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about your current role, the Utah Jazz. I feel like everything's going so fast. VSL, HallPass charity with Jalen Brunson, and now the Jazz season starting. So what are you doing now for them?
Yeah, so now I'm a video production intern. I think to give a little background, I wanted to, before getting a full-time position, I wanted to get more experience with pro sports, because all my experience prior had been with college. So I wanted to just understand what that was like. And then after working the season with the Jazz, be able to, make that decision. Do I want to go back and get a full-time in college, or move forward and get a full-time position with pro sports? Because they're entirely different in every single capacity. So that's why I decided to do it. And I think a little bit of a surprise to me was, the Utah Jazz as an organization is under Smith Entertainment Group, and we had just introduced a brand new NHL franchise, which is like a huge historical moment that I got to be a part of, was just introducing the Utah Hockey Club to the NHL, and to Salt Lake City in general. So being a part of that was absolutely, it's been incredible, and I'm still, playing a big role in it. It's still very much ongoing, but I think I really enjoy working with Smith Entertainment Group in both teams. I think I'm learning so much about the ins and outs of professional sports, all about player access and how things are structured differently. I think it would be surprising for anyone who goes from a college organization structure to a pro organization structure. One example is like your team like automatically is going to double in size. So a lot of different personalities and understanding how different departments work together. I think Utah Jazz is uniquely structured like an advertising agency, which is great because I, have that advertising background from college. And so it's not just like, oh, I want to do this video, let me do it, kind of like how it was in college. It's more like I got to make a pitch deck and, pitch it to PR, go through the hoops and stuff like that. And, schedule it and do a lot of pre-production and build a team in order to shoot this video. So I think that is such a valuable experience that I'm getting working with Utah Jazz, and the people, that I'm working with are Emmy winners and Oscar winners. They've got a lot of experience under their belt. And I think also very uniquely, Utah Jazz's organization is very young. Most of the people that work in marketing are in their 20s. So getting that perspective as a 22-year-old working with, my boss is, only a few years older than me in that sense. So being able to kind of relate through a generational lens is really unique, and not a lot of places have that. And I think that's kind of what sets our content apart. And I think, elephant in the room, Utah Jazz is not the best basketball team in the league. It honestly, is really ranked low. So that being said, you have to be more creative with the way that you're putting out content, and you have to find the little niches that bring a community together in one stadium to watch their team play. Mm-hmm. It's not about posting highlights all the time and dunks and stuff like that, but it's a lot about, we're going to go and shoot the rookies trading cards with like the youth, it's like stuff like that, like I said before when I was talking about working with CU, it's little mundane things like that really gets people's attention and really builds a community and, follows the mission that Utah Jazz has, which is, being, the mountain basketball, role within Salt Lake City and uplifting youth and everyone that's around that community as well. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of important work for the organization and involving the community and not just, staying on one path and trying to get that entire view, get everybody involved. But how are you hoping to, translate this experience into either future career paths or future roles? And what are your goals?
Yeah, so I would say to start, my goal ultimately is to become a creative director of a sports team or a sports affiliated brand. My biggest inspiration is Nike, and I want to work with Nike at some point and have a very important role in Nike. I understand I got to do a lot to do that, but I'm working towards it.
You're getting there.
Yeah, I'm getting there slowly but surely. But so I think that's why I wanted to work with a pro team, is just to have that under my belt. I have NBA experience. I understand what it's like working with professional athletes, from, hockey to basketball. And then I think, what I'm hoping to get out of this is just, one, the better understanding between college sports and professional sports, and all the things that come with working in pro sports. And I also think just enhancing my production skills. So there's a very big difference between producing for social media and producing for commercials and producing for sponsorship stuff. And, I think having that ad experience is a lot different. It's like digital marketing, but a little bit different than that, Mm-hmm. So a lot of my role is concepting, just writing storyboards and writing shot lists and coming and pitching ideas about what, for example, HallPass, which is a travel agency, and they're a corporate sponsor of the Utah Jazz. How are we going to incorporate HallPass and the Utah Jazz and create an ad that goes out to people and convinces people, hey, buy HallPass if you like Utah Jazz, Mm-hmm. So that's entirely different than anything that I did with CU, and it's not something that I could have gotten at CU. It's that real nitty gritty ad work that can be annoying at sometimes. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of jumping through hoops and going through different people in order to get something out there. But I think it also makes it that much more rewarding when it is out there. Is played a really big role in this, and it wasn't just holding a camera, but seeing it all the way through from start to finish. And I think that was the biggest thing that I wanted to take away with this internship is not just being handed projects and saying, make this, but coming up with an idea and seeing it all the way start to finish within, a big team and different departments and everything like that. But yeah.
Right.
Hopefully that answers
your career. Oh, for sure. Your career has been the culmination of many years of hard work and attention to detail. But for those listening right now, what's one thing they can do if they're looking at you and they're like, oh my gosh, that's my dream job. When I'm 22, 23, that's what I want to be doing. What's your advice to them of what they can do today?
Yeah, I would say, Nike, just do it. I think a lot of people making excuses for why they can't do things. Oh, I don't have the gear. I don't have the money to buy a camera. I don't have, the connections that I want to have. But it's that's not just going to fall in your lap and happen. You have to figure out what your resources are and use that to the best of your advantage. So, looking at your inspirations and what you like the most and being able to see oh, like I really like what Zion did, and she's a video editor and she's a video shooter. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to figure out how to video edit and how to video shoot. I'm going to go and rent a camera for a day. Just get like a $50 a day camera that you can just go and shoot with and go outside and just start recording stuff and putting something together, or find a video on social media that you really like, that's simple and easy to do, and just recreate it. I think that's a lot of the stuff that I did when I started learning, was just like taking things that I really liked and literally recreating it step by step. And, obviously this is an original thought and an original creative idea, but at least now I know how to do it, and I know the formula that it takes to make something like this. So then I can, next time I go and do it, I can approach it from my perspective and my lens and my own creativity and original thoughts, and be able to reach that end goal that I really want to do. So, I would just say just really stop making excuses and just really get out there and start doing it. And it doesn't take as much as you think. And then I think another piece of advice is just like network and collaborate. If you don't have your own camera, like find a friend who does, and say, hey, let's just go for a hike and shoot some stuff. Like, did so much of that in college, was just go on hikes and shoot nature and stuff, especially when I didn't have my own camera. And then, just collaborating and learning from other people, and finding mentors. Like, I think the biggest reason why I'm here is because of the two mentors I had at CU. Serena Archer and John Snelson were both the creative directors of CU Athletics in its entirety, and I got really close with them. I'd spend hours in Serena's office just watching her edit, talking to her about her thought process behind a story she was trying to tell, going to practices with her like every day. It was stuff like that that really allowed me to be to where I am today, because you never want to think that you're too good to learn anything new. You always have a chance to learn something new from anyone. You can learn something from literally everyone that you come across, even if they're not an Emmy winner or Oscar winner. They always have different perspectives than you, and if you close your mind off to that, then you're never going to really learn much of anything, so just being open-minded and understanding who the leaders are and what you want to do and where you want to follow, and connecting with them. And even saying like, I want to mentor with you. I did that a lot this summer, was just reaching out to film studios and being like, let me PA for you. Let me just be on set. I'll hold cords and wires and, plug stuff in. Obviously I don't want to be doing that for the rest of my life, but this is how you get your foot in the door. I guess like understand what it's like to be on a studio set. Just don't be shy, connect with people, network as best as you can. I did so much networking at Summer League, which is like crazy because, someone from Summer League just got hired for Utah Jazz under PR. So now for me, I know someone who's on PR, and I can talk to them directly and just be like, hey, I have this like video idea. Can you talk to your boss about it? And we can make this happen. Which is like such a vital thing, is being able to have a good relationship between marketing and PR, because some organizations, they just butt heads and you can't get anything done. So that was really, really awesome about like working with Summer League and making those really important connections. And even Ethan, who brought me on, he's currently like an LCC for the Eagles, and is trying to get me some opportunities with the NFL. So making those connections and taking them very seriously, and not just leaving people out to dry after that first initial introduction, but follow up with people and just say like, hey, I made this really cool video. I would love for you to check it out and let me know your thoughts. Like, little things like that go so far with people that have been in this industry, because ultimately people just want to see hardworking individuals with a really strong work ethic, just willing to grind and, put in the time. And, I think I rambled a ton there, but it's all great
advice. It's very great advice, especially because sports can be so daunting, even if you don't have the connections, just trying to get your foot in the door. So seriously, if you're listening, Zion, what you're talking about. You're proof that it works. So thank you so much for coming on today's episode. I had a great time talking to you, and I hope our viewers learned a thing or two. I'm sure they learned a lot more than that, but thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our VSL Talent Alumni Series with VSL alum Zion Atwater. I hope you enjoyed hearing about her introduction to the sports world and learned something new about what it takes to jumpstart your career in the sports industry. Make sure to share this episode with your friends, family, colleagues, and anyone else interested in the business of sports. Please like us on social media, subscribe, and leave a review. You can find the show notes at sportsbusinessclassroom.com. Let us know if you listen, and if you enjoyed the episode, tag us on your Instagram story at Sports Business Classroom. Text it to a friend and spread the news of this year's SBC Business of Basketball Immersive Experience. This episode is also brought to you by HallPass Media, a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. For more information on HallPass Media, go to hallpassnetwork.com.